Hi, welcome back. My name is Allie, and today we're going to be talking about two science fiction novels that were recently published. I read them this weekend, and I just wanted to chit chat about them. I was going to vlog, and then I was like, I don't read sci-fi or dystopian novels too often, so I thought it might be a disaster. Turns out it wasn't. I gave both of these books 4 stars. Wow. The first one I read was The High House by Jessie Greengrass. And that last name is kind of spot on for what this book was about. This takes place in the somewhat near future where climate change has gotten to the degree where weather things start happening with no one can predict it because it's just happening all of a sudden. States and countries and towns just get totally flooded. We get 3 points of view in the story. We get Caro and Polly, who are siblings. Their parents are somewhat involved in the scientific world, and so they are trying to help other people, but when it gets to the kind of point where there's not really anything anyone can do, they use their time and resources to create the High House, which is this place where their children are going to be safe and they're going to stockpile like food and clothing and games and just they want their children to survive. And then our other point of view is Sally. Her grandfather, we call him Grandy, they live in the same town that the High House is in. And Polly's mother, Francesca, she gets them to look after the High House when they're not available to be there. So at a certain point, Caro, Polly, Sally, and Grandy meet and they all live together in the High House. This sounds super exciting and oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? But honestly, the reason I loved this book so much, I think I gave it a 4.5 stars, is because it is so slow. It really builds the story and it's not that long of a read. I listened to the audiobook and I think it was 6 hours, which usually books are 8 to 12 hours. So it went by fast, but it really just was this beautifully written story about these people, and it was really about them. You know what I mean? I keep saying you know what I mean in these videos, and I need to stop because it's getting annoying. You know what I mean? If you hear violent clicking in the background, that's my husband playing a video game. I'm sorry. So yeah, there was suspense in this because you're wondering what's going to happen to these kids. Polly is, you can't really tell what ages these people are. Polly is a child. Sally is college age. Grandy is old. He's Sally's grandfather. And then Caro must be 18. The thing that's interesting about this story though is that it really does weave in time. So there are flashbacks within flashbacks and you kind of jump around. You already know certain people are not going to make it. So it's not really plot based, which if you've seen any of my other vlogs, I really am more of a stylistic kind of reader. I appreciate content over plot. That doesn't make any sense. I really appreciate style or character building over plot. So this book really was right up my alley. I feel really uncomfortable saying that phrase because my name is Allie, so sorry. So yeah, you get the excitement of this perilous situation going on in their lives, and it was interesting reading this through coronavirus, just because you're imagining these people are stuck together, so it is kind of like a quarantining, but at the same time it's also scary in a way that this totally could happen soon. You know what I mean? Oh, there I go again. This could happen to us in the near future, our children's futures. It's a little scary. I think the most interesting aspect of this book was how the characters kind of dealt with each other, because they aren't a perfect family. They didn't even know each other before they got to this High House. So you get to see their characters play with each other, and not just play, but kind of rub each other the wrong way. Oh, that sounds perverse. You see them not really get along, but have to, for the greater good, work as a team together. So I thought this was wonderful. I gave it 4.5 stars. If you are into the slow burn, if climate change is an interesting topic to you, one of the biggest themes I got out of this was motherhood, because Sally and Cora really step up Cora stepped up when she was a child herself to raise Polly practically. because her parents were busy, trying to save everyone else and build this house for them. So it was interesting reading from the point of view of someone who is not a mother but takes on that role. I thought that was really interesting, and Sally also develops that role as well. And speaking of mothers, the next book I read was The School for Good Mothers. I'm glad I read these in the order that I did because The High House was so chill. I mean, I thought it was stressful a little bit, but then I read The School for Good Mothers, which had me so stressed out, I was like biting my nails. This story was crazy. It was much longer. It was twice the length of The High House. So much goes on. Okay, let me paint you a picture here. Right from the start, the stress level is like, oh my gosh. We open with Frida. She has left her 18-month-old baby to go grab a coffee, and she goes into work. She loses track of time. She's been gone for 2 hours with her kid, her baby, home alone. So obviously, Frida has messed up. This is bad. And I've seen some reviews where people are like, I feel like the author is making it seem like Frida didn't mess up. And I don't see that at all. Like, Frida knows that she messed up, and she learns to regret it as the single most worst decision of her life. So a neighbor calls CPS, Child Protective Services, and they have this new implementation where they are cracking down on parents. They are really trying to protect children, which sounds nice, but they put cameras in Frida's house to monitor her before her court date to see what kind of household she has. They take Harriet away from Frida. Harriet is her 18-month-old baby. Frida is divorced, so Harriet goes and lives with her ex-husband, who cheated on Frida with a woman named Susanna, who was so frustrating, but she's obviously not the villain, we find out throughout the story. And months, I think, go by where the only way Frida can see her daughter Harriet is through a caseworker who has to film Frida in front of her daughter Harriet, which obviously that's not a natural type of situation. So Harriet is so nervous. There's a camera pointed at her face, and the caseworker is like, play with her. Oh my God, I could not. I wanted to punch that caseworker in the face. There's also racial commentary all throughout this book. Frida herself is Chinese, Harriet is half Chinese, and there are more characters that I'll get to that are Black, Hispanic, white. There's a whole mixture of people in this story. But I bring that up because it is so blatantly obvious to me that Frida is being treated unfairly, and it's not outright racist, but it is that kind of systemic, annoying, frustrating type of racism that is deep inside someone. So they're treating her different, and you can see it so clearly in this, and it's heartbreaking. The caseworker randomly will call last minute, say she double booked, she's not gonna be able to see her daughter for a few more weeks. Like, it is beyond frustrating. Sorry, that was my husband. So Frida's court case eventually comes. I have to tell you the verdict to get into the rest of the story. She is denied custody back of Harriet, and she says that she has the option to either not see Harriet again or to go to the School for Good Mothers. Her class is the first to go to this, so immediately you're thinking, oh, this is gonna be a shit show, because in history, when has the first government-operated system been good? Like, usually it's like years later you find out these kind of programs were total, like, abuse. Anyway, that is exactly what happened. She goes to this facility. It is like a prison. But they're not in prison, and so much effed up shit happens in here that I cannot tell you. You'll have to read it yourself. I'm not going to give anything else away. There is something crazy that these mothers, and there's another school for fathers, have to deal with in their classes. That is, oh my gosh, like, that's effed up. I can't believe it. And they treat these mothers so poorly, and it's so funny because the instructors that are teaching them to be good mothers are not even mothers themselves. And they just ask for impossible things, and it is so frustrating how impossible it is to climb this ladder of, these mothers are just emotionally abused by these people, threatening them that they cannot call their child. They're not going to be able to get, it's just awful. And you see the gender differences as well. The men are treated so differently than the women. And you see the racial differences. The Black women are treated differently. The Asian women are treated differently. The white women are treated differently. The Hispanic women are treated differently. And it just effing is heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I have to say that I don't always enjoy plot, but because this had such substance and plot, the plot really had me like, oh my gosh, what is gonna happen here? This was truly a page turner, and I think everyone should read this, honestly. Obviously, trigger warnings for people if you are a new mother, if you're a mother in general. I'm not even a mother, and this was so upsetting to me. Yeah, also a trigger warning for suicide talk. This is Jessamine Chan's debut novel. I cannot believe it. It was so well written. I cannot wait to see what Jessamine Chan releases next. Honestly, it's blowing my mind that this is her debut novel. With the plot itself, like, wow, but also the conversations about race, the conversations about systems like Child Protective Services, the conversation about motherhood in general. I'm in awe of this book. And the ending, oh, you guys need to read this. It is like Girl Interrupted, Handmaid's Tale, and have you read Girl with Sharp Sticks? That's kind of a spoiler alert, but it's like all three of those together. And I don't want that to overshadow the high horse. I don't want this to overshadow the High House because I thoroughly enjoy that. So final thoughts, honestly, I think you should try reading both of these. If you're gonna read both of them, read the High House first, because it is less stressful. And I think if I read A House for Good Mothers first and then the High House, I would have maybe thought the High House was a little boring, just to be fair. But interestingly enough, both of these books discuss motherhood in very different ways. Obviously, The School for Good Mothers is about Frida, who is a mother herself, and a story about all these other women who are mothers. And then in the High House, we have Cora and Sally, who are not mothers, but have adopted the mother role. They have been put into this role. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Final thoughts for recommendations. If you like a slow burn, then I would recommend the High House, especially if you love that found family aspect, read the High House. If you love a good thriller, if you don't mind being super stressed out, I would recommend The School for Good Mothers. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to be thinking about The School for Good Mothers for quite some time. So yeah, take with that what you will. I didn't think I would enjoy sci-fi as much as I thought I would. Obviously, this is not like super science fiction. This is very somewhat near future science fiction, and I think I vibe with that a little better because I do love contemporary stories so much. All right, guys. If you read these books, please let me know what you think. I need to talk to somebody about these. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.